Om Namo Narayana. Dasakam 11. Sanaka enters Vaikunta. O Lord Guru Ayyappa, while creation was going on as ordained, the four divine sages, Sanaka, etc., came to Vaikunta to see thee. After traversing the 6 fortresses, the divine sages came to the gateway of thy incomparable abode, containing the enchanting garden of Naisreshyasa, various tanks and stately castles studded with gems. Here the gods Jaya and Vijaya prevented them from entering thy abode. Instantly the sages who were very keen to see thee were enraged, and all this, O Lord, happened in accordance with thy wishes. The sages, outraged by this despicable behavior of the doorkeepers, carrying the glory of Vaikunta, cursed them to become demons or asuras. Having thus incurred the wrath and the curse of the sages, these 2 servants of thine repented their action and begged the sages to grant them the remembrance of Lord Hari even in their lowly asuras. Aware of all these happenings, thou, O lotus-eyed Lord, emerged with Goddess Lakshmi, with thy lovely arms resting on Garuda's shoulders, delighting the sages with thy extremely beautiful appearance. The divine sages sang thy praises, and thou delighted them with thy charming speech. Then, with pity for thy forlorn, helpless attendants, thou promised them that they could attain thee in 3 births by nurturing extreme hatred and enmity towards thee. Then these 2 dependents of thine were born of sage Kasyapa in Diti as twin demon warriors. As they were conceived at dusk, they were extremely evil-natured and roamed the world like 2 Yamas or gods of destruction. They were known as Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha. Owing to the cruel demonic nature, these 2 began to terrorize this world of thine. Among them, Hiranyaksha, the king of the demons, searched frantically for an enemy equal to him in valor to fight against, but could not find one. So he abducted thy beloved goddess Earth and drowned her in water. He then wandered around, crowing with pride and flaunting his mace. Coming to know from Varuna, the Lord of waters, that thou wert equal to him in valor, he went about looking for thee. O Lord Guru Ayyappa, treasurers of mercy, may thou, who art visible only to true devotees, remove my afflictions. Dasakam 12. The Boar Incarnation. Swayambhuva Manu, who was busy with the creation of human being, saw the earth being drowned in water at an inappropriate time. He went to Satyaloka along with the sages and met Brahma, who was serene and happy owing to his devotion to thee. Swayambhuva Manu told Brahma, the lotus born, that while he was engaged in the creations, the earth had unfortunately been drowned in water, and hence a place had to be arranged for those beings to live in. Thus entreated by Manu, Brahma prayed to thy feet, O lotus-eyed Lord, for guidance. Brahma took refuge at thy feet, lamenting that he had already drunk the waters of that ledge, and the earth was sinking. Feeling helpless, he knew not what to do. At that moment, thou, who art omnipresent, came out of Brahma's nostril as a tiny boar. Thou, whose boar form was only the size of a thumb, while emerging, grew rapidly to the size of an elephant, spanning the skies. Seeing the phenomenal form, Brahma and his sons were filled with amazement. While Brahma was wondering who this tiny boar which emerged from his nose and had attained this unimaginably great form could be, and whether it was the Maya of Vishnu, the unconquerable, thou instantly grew to the size of a mountain and roared repeatedly in a terrifying manner. Hearing thy thunderous roar, sages in Janaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka began to sing thy praises, overjoyed by the salutations. Thou dived into the ocean with this mighty form, roaring again. thy erect smoke-colored air twitching upward, thy tail held aloft, thy snout pointing downward, and the eyes rolling, thou plunged into the ocean, rapidly penetrating the clouds, delighting the sages who were singing thy praises. Then, diving into the swirling waters, where hosts of crocodiles and whales whirled and rolled around, agitated by the surging waves, thou searched frantically for goddess Earth, terrifying the inhabitants of Rasatala with thy mighty roar. Espying the earth laid at the bottom of Rasatala by the cruel demon, thou, O Lord, who came in the guise of a boar, quickly and playfully lifted her by the end of thy tusk, unmindful of the demons who came rushing towards thee. O Lord, may thou, who came in the guise of a playful boar, emerging from the swirling waters of the ocean with that mighty form, carrying the earth on the tip of thy tusk like a twig of grass, save me from my ills. Dasakam 13. Slaying of Hiranyaksha. O Varada, Hiranyaksha was roaming about in the knee-deep waters of the village, looking for thee. At the time, sage Narada, thy ardent devotee, who was well versed in diplomatic tactics, to accomplish thy aims, went to him and spoke to him in cleverly worded phrase, praising his prowess and belittling thy strength. Narada, who wished to provoke the demon against thee, bemoaned the abduction of the earth, which rightfully belonged to him, by the trickster. Vishnu incited thus. The demon, following Narada's instruction, found thee just as thou wert emerging from the waters with the earth. Ignoring for a while that son of Diti who was making fun of thee, calling thee a wild animal and shouting other words of insult at thee, thou, pursuing the earth on the tip of thy tusk, trembling with fear, propped her up firmly on the water with thy yogic strength and then engaged in battle with him. Since the demon wielded a club in his hand, thou too chose to fight with thy lofty club, Kaumodoki, as it were, child's play. Hearing the clashing sounds of the two clubs, the gods in heaven assembled in the sky, keen to watch the battle. Then Brahmadeva requested thee to kill the demon before dusk. Due to the astonishment of all those watching this wonderful duel, the demon's club felled thine own club to the ground. Yet thou, quite unperturbed, recalled to mind thy Sudarshana Chakra or tusk, powerful enough to destroy the entire demon race, and took it in hand with a radiant smile on thy face. Then the demon, fuming like the god of destruction, attacked thee with a trident which thou shattered with thy tusk. Overcome with rage, he rained blows on thee with his fist and resorted to illusionary tactics to ensnare thee, which is really absurd, as thou art beyond all illusion. Seeing that all his illusionary tactics had been destroyed by a minute spark of flame from thy disk, the demon, his mind blinded by rage, dealt several blows to thee with his fist. Then thou struck a mighty blow on the base of his ear with thy toe. The gigantic Asura fell down, bleeding profusely from the face and mouth, on being kicked by thy foot, and the sages were overjoyed by his fall. Then those great sages, whose hearts were delighted with deep enhanced fervor, extolled thy virtues, singing profoundly meaningful hymns about thee, who art the embodiment of sacrifice. O Supreme Lord, granter of boons, thou who art the personification of Yagna, wert then described in the following manner by the sages. The skin are the Chandas, the Gayatri Mantra and such like. Thy hair houses the sheaf of Darba grass. Thy eye holds the ghee. In thy feet are the four priests conducting the sacrifice. Thy face holds the sacrificial vessel for keeping the ghee. In thy stomach is the vessel, Ida, for storing the Puroda offering. Thy tongue is the vessel for extracting Soma juice, and thy ear is the vessel of drinking Soma juice. The Soma juice is thy semen, and in thy neck are the three sacrificial rites called upset. O destroyer of the demon Madhu, thus the great sages sang hymns of glory delighting the mind. O thou of this admirable Varaha incarnation of immaculate glory, having accomplished the task of destroying the demon Hiranyaksha, didst retire to the abode Vaikunta with thy heart filled by thy own nature bliss. O Lord of Guruvayur, may thou protect me from my ills. Dasakam 14. The Kapila incarnation. Swayambhuva Manu, who came from the limb of lotus-born Brahma, lived happily, constantly worshipping thy 2 feet and singing thy praises. During that same time, Prajapati Kardama, who took birth from the shadow of Brahma and who, in accordance with Brahma's wishes, took pleasure in creation, served thee, O Lord, for 10,000 years. O Lord, thy divine form, seated on the Garuda, majestic in color like the dark blue cloud, thy lotus-like hand holding playfully the lotus flower, and thy face radiant with a pleasing smile, was revealed to Kardama by the divs. When Kardama, enraptured by thy revelation, was singing the praises, thou granted him the boon of marrying the daughter of Manu, and thereby begetting 9 daughters and a son, Kapila, who would be a part of thine own self, finally salvation. Then thou vanished from his sight. Swayambhuva Manu, under the guidance of Narada, who was prompted by thee, went with his consort, Satarupa, and virtuous daughter, Devahuti, to Kardama, who was looking forward to their coming. Kardama married Devahuti, the jewel among maidens given by Manu. Although at peace in this devotion to thee, he lavished his love on her in return for a selfless and steadfast service and affection. In order to make his beloved Devahuti happy, Kardama, by virtue of the yogic power acquired by him through his constant devotion to thee, adopted a new elegant form and indulged in romantic pleasures in the heavenly regions with Devahuti, accompanied by celestial maidens, in the Vimana or aerial pleasure car created by himself. After spending 100 years thus and begetting 9 daughters, Kardama, though ever ready to go to the forest to do penance, stayed at home to fulfill his beloved's desire, eagerly looking forward to thy birth as their son Kapila. O Lord, thou took the incarnation of Kapila in Devahuti, who, obeying her husband's command, was intent only on service to thee, simply to teach the human race the philosophy of the Supreme Soul and the means to acquire that wisdom. Happy at seeing thy Kapila incarnation, Kardama departs. O Guruvayurappa, may thou, who came in the form of Kapila to teach thy mother the essence of religion, save me from all my sorrows. Dasakam 15. Kapila's teachings. Thou, in thy incarnation as Kapila, advised Devahuti as thus: the human mind gets attracted to material objects in this world, which is to bondage, while the mind which remains detached is free from worldly ties and hence conducive to adopting the path of devotion. Bhakti Yoga, or the path of devotion, leads to the liberation of the soul. Hence, we should follow in the footsteps of great souls and have only the goal of devotion in our heart. There are 24 basic principles governing human existence in this world. They are Prakriti or matter, Mahat or intelligence, Agamkara or egoism, the 5 subtle bases, the 5 elements, the mind, and the 10 organs of the sense and action. The 25th, which is Purusha or the Supreme Soul, transcends all others, and the one who understands this differentiation will be free from Maya. Thus, thou advised Devahuti in the incarnation as Kapila. This Purusha or soul is far above the numerous qualities relating to Prakriti or matter. If the Purusha gets attached to Prakriti, her qualities influence him. by steadfast devotion to thee and constantly remembering these principles, that attachment to Prakriti will automatically vanish. Thus, thou advisest Devahuti in the incarnation as Kapila. The devotee who has cleansed his mind of impurities and acquired control over his senses by the rigorous practice of yogasanas should constantly think of the Lord's form as seated on the Garuda, adorned with divine ornaments and weapons, resplendent like the Tamala flower. Thus thou advisest Devahuti in thy incarnation as Kapila. Listening to the Lord's virtues, attributes, and stories of his sportive phenomena, chanting his names repeatedly and singing his glories will inspire intense devotion which flows unhindered like the heavenly river Ganges. Such a great devotion is powerful enough to conquer death. Thus thou advisest Devahuti in the incarnation as Kapila. The man who earns his livelihood by unfair means, inflicting hardship on others to maintain his family, who is a slave to physical passion, who is engrossed in his children's mischief, and who is attached to his home without any devotion to the Lord, will truly and unfortunately go to hell. Thus thou advisest Devahuti in the incarnation as Kapila. In the womb of the mother, a man goes through endless woes, and although having real wisdom, he has no means of overcoming his sorrows. When he comes out in the world, he forgets that knowledge and is afflicted by several maladies in his childhood. Again, on attaining adolescence, he becomes unfortunately a slave to carnal passion. Thus thou advisest Devahuti in the incarnation as Kapila. The householder who leads a virtuous life, propitiating the gods and his ancestors, goes to the southern path, and after the merits earned by him are exhausted, falls back on the earth to begin a new cycle of life. But if our action and devotion are dedicated to the Lord without any expectation of its fruit, we will go toward the northern path of salvation. Thus thou advisest Devahuti in the incarnation as Kapila. O Lord, blessing Devahuti after imparting to her the knowledge regarding the Supreme Being and salvation, thou departed accompanied by the host of sages. In course of time, Devahuti, adopting the path of devotion with a mind cleansed of impurities, attained salvation. Even now, thou in the form of Kapila dost reside in the northeastern quarter for the welfare of mankind. O Supreme Lord, what more can be said in this regard? Thou hast most empathetically declared that devotion to thy lotus feet alone can remove all our fears and grant all our desires. May thou, O Guru Ayappa, cure all my afflictions and kindle in my heart that devotion to thee. Dasakam 16. Incarnation as Narayana. Brahma's son Daksha Prajapati married Prasuti, daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, and fathered 16 daughters by her. Of this, he gave in to god Dharma, Swada to the ancestors, Swa to Agni, the fire god, and Sati to Shiva, who was a part of thine own self in marriage. Dharma's wife Murti gave birth to thee, Narayana, along with thy twin Nara, both of great glory. The Devas who were overjoyed at this incarnation of thee sounded drums, showered flowers, and sang thy praises. In order to destroy the demon Sahasra Kavacha, who donned 1,000 armors, thou, in the twin form of Nara Narayana, did penance and battle alternately for 1,000 years, and as a result of that penance, all but one of his armors were shattered. Thou broke the remaining one armor and thus effortlessly killed him. Thou and thy brother Nara retired to the hermitage at Badarika and spent thy time practicing the path to salvation and teaching the same to others also. Then Indra, unable to tolerate thy peaceful existence and jealous of the strength of thy penance, sent Manmata, the god of love, along with celestial maidens to disturb thy peace and penance. Cupid, along with his friends, the spring and the gentle Malaya breeze, aimed his arrows, consisting of the erotic glances and graceful dance movements of the celestial maidens at thee. On seeing thee, still unmoved by such gestures, Cupid was alarmed. Thou spoke to him then with a kind smile, reassuring Cupid, Vasanta, and the celestial maidens to be calm. Thou revealed to them thy own retinue of beautiful maidens, standing around, singing thy glory, who were a creation of thine own mind, and they were wonderstruck by that sight. Cupid and his companions, who had conspired together to allure thee, were in fact captivated by the sweet aroma of thy serving maids. Ashamed of themselves, they humbly accepted Urvashi, who was so beautiful that the pride of the heavenly damsels was subdued, presented by thee to them. Seeing and perceiving thy glory, Indra became disturbed in mind, reflecting on thy majesty, O granter of boons. There is only one other incarnation of thine, which surpasses this one in peace and beauty, and that is thy earnestness, Krishna. Daksha, who was overly indulged by Brahma, became blinded by arrogance due to the predominance of Rajaguna in his mind. He had no respect or devotion for thee, and was unfortunately without any peace of mind. Due to this taint in his nature, he developed a hatred for Lord Shiva, who too is a form of thee, and projected his hatred by insulting his own daughter Sati, who was Shiva's wife, in the sacrifice he performed. Shiva, who was enraged by Daksha's insults, destroyed the sacrifice and cut off his head then. When Shiva was propitiated by the gods, Daksha regained his life due to the Shiva's blessing. His sacrifice was then completed in the best manner possible by thee, and he got back his peace of mind. O Guru Ayyappa, thou who brings peace to the devotee's heart, may thou save me. Dasakam 17, the Dhruva episode. King Uttanapada, the son of Swayambhuva Manu, had two wives by name Suruchi and Suniti. The king was very fond of Suruchi but ignored Suniti altogether. Having no other support, Suniti took refuge in thee alone. Once when Uttama, son of Suruchi, was sitting on his father's lap, Dhruva, son of Suniti, wished to do the same but was stopped by Suruchi, who scolded him harshly. O Guru Ayyappa, those who have no devotion to thee are indeed very jealous at heart. The father, who was blinded by his infatuation for Suruchi, remained a silent witness to the cruel treatment meted out by her to the boy. Deeply wounded at heart, Dhruva went in search of his mother. She consoled the child, saying that taking refuge at thy feet alone would help one overcome the ill effects of one's previous actions. Following his mother's advice, the child, who was only 5 years old, yet full of self-respect, set out of the city, determined to pray to thee. Sage Narada, whom he met on the way, taught him the method of worshipping thee by reciting mantras. With that knowledge, he proceeded to the forest Madhuvana to do penance. King Uttanapada, who was grieving at heart after Dhruva's departure to the forest, was consoled by Narada, who came to the palace. Meanwhile, the boy, with his mind fully dedicated to thee, spent 5 months in rigorous penance, intensifying it step by step. Owing to the intensity of the Dhruva's penance, living creatures in all the directions began to feel suffocated. The gods prayed to thee to save them. So with thy heart overflowing with mercy, thou appeared seated on Garuda before Dhruva, whose heart was fully immersed in thy ecstatic form. Thy divine appearance filled Dhruva's heart with waves of ecstasy, deeply submerged in the nectar of thy form. He was kindled with a desire to praise thee. Knowing his desire, thou gently caressed his cheek with thy conch. Then Dhruva, with his mind purified and enlightened by the divine touch, sang the praises to his heart's content. Thou blessed him to rule over the kingdom happily for a long time. Thou then granted him the boon of attaining the highest abode, the Dhruva Padam, from which there would be no return to nether regions. After thou had departed, blessing Dhruva thus, the prince returned to the city to the joy of all. All his wishes were fulfilled with thy grace. After his father retired to the forest to do penance, he ruled the kingdom happily for a long time. O Guru Ayyappa, once when Duruva's brother Uttama was killed by a Yaksha, he was determined to wage war against the Yakshas, but in compliance with the request of Swayambhuva Manu, Duruva withdrew from the war. Kubera, the king of the Yakshas, being pleased with Duruva's forbearance, granted him a boon, but the large-hearted Duruva asked only for the boon of firm devotion to thee. When Duruva's life came to an end, he went with his mother in the aerial car brought by the servants to the Duruva region high up in the heavens, where to this day he resides happily as a guiding star. O Guru Ayyappa, may thou, who art an ardent protector of thy devotees, remove my afflictions. Dasakam 18. The Prithu episode. The famous king Anga, who was born in the same dynasty as Duruva, had a son named Vena, who was very wicked. Anga, who was heartbroken by his son's evil ways, went to the forest with his mind dedicated to thy feet alone. In spite of his wickedness and cruelty, he was crowned king by the subjects of his kingdom to rule over the land. Owing to his arrogance and pride, he indulged in self-praise and banned all sacrificial rites to thee and all kinds of worship to thee in his kingdom. In order to bring him back to the path of righteousness, several sages came to advise him for his own good, but he spurned their advice, boasting that he alone was the supreme lord on earth and blaspheming thee using vile words. The lordly sages, enraged by his behavior, cursed him and reduced him to ashes like a moth burnt on fire. After his death, the great sages were afraid that tyranny and evil would increase if the kingdom remained without a ruler. Vena's mother had a long preserved his dead body, so the lordly sages churned his thighs, which were like strong poles, and removed all his sins. Then when they churned his ramrod like arm, they manifested thyself. Thou took the form of Prithu, the great emperor, prompted by the sages. Soothsayers, bards, and others sang hymns of glory about the various brave and gallant exploits. Thou wert to perform in the future, due to Vena's evil deeds. The earth had swallowed all her wealth and would not bring it forth. Attacking her with thy bow, thou levelled all the ups and downs and made the earth yield all the hidden wealth. Transforming the earth into a celestial coal, Kamadhenu, thou made the gods and others milk it, using the heads of the dynasties as calves, whatever they wish for, such as the food and other desired objects, in befitting beautiful vessels as much as they want. O Lord of three abodes, thou, in the form of Prithu, performed several sacrifices to Vishnu, which is thine own self. When the 100th horse sacrifice began, Indra, out of jealousy, came to thee disguised as a lowly barbarian and abducted the horse. In the battle which followed, he was defeated by thy son. But Indra came back persistently and abducted the horse time and again. Finally, the great sages decided to make Devendra himself the sacrificial offering, but God Brahma stopped them from doing so. When the sacrifice was over, thou saw thine own self manifested in the all-pervading Vishnu form. In thy form as Prithu, thou received the boon of a single-minded devotion from Vishnu. Later, while residing on the banks of the river Ganges as Prithu, when thou wert engaged in counseling the sages assembled there for a sacrificial session about Dharma, thou saw in person the great sage Sanaka and others. Following the advice on spiritual wisdom given by Sanaka and the rest, thou, as Prithu, went to the forest to do penance and attained self-salvation. Merging in thine own self, O Guru Ayyappa, may thou, who came in the form of Prithu, remove all my afflictions. Dasakam 19. Daksha's birth. The great grandson of Prithu, Prachinabhatis by name, who was noble and virtuous and ever intent on the path of righteousness and duty, begot by his young wife Satadruti a set of 10 good sons, collectively called Prachetas, who looked as if they were very young sprigs of thy mercy. In accordance with the wish of their father, who was engaged in the task of creation, the 10 sons, eager to do penance to thee, came to the shore of the western ocean, where they found a beautiful lake. At that time, thy most ardent devotee Siva, also known as Sri Rudra, who is ever eager to see thy devotees arriving at the sanctified water spot, Siva appeared before Prachetas and taught them the Rudra Gita, a set of hymns praising thy glory. Standing in the water, these devotees chanted those hymns of thy glory, worshipping thee for 10,000 years. As they were drowned in the nectar of thy supreme bliss, they took a very long time to see thee in person, unlike Dhruva, who was blessed with thy revelation after 5 months of penance. Due to the ever increasing power of their penance, even their wicked ancestor Vena, who obstructed all sacrifices to thee, was cleansed of his sins. Their father, Prachina Barhis, who attained the knowledge of self revelation from sage Narada, who visited his abode, also merged in thee. Owing to thy boundless mercy, thou appeared before Prachetas, seated aloft the Garuda Vahana of glowing luster, thy 8 forms radiant with the glittering light of those divine weapons, the conch, etc., adorning them. Although Prachetas did not beg thee for any favors, thou granted them boons. Due to thy intense compassion of thine own will, the meditation alone is enough to give all good things to living creatures, and the chanting of Rudra Gita will grant all the rightful wishes. Thou blessed Prachetas with the boon of marrying Marisha, the daughter of trees, and enjoying life with her for a period of 10 lakh years, and begetting a son named Daksha. Then they would attain thee, thus thou blessed them joyfully. Seeing the dense growth of trees covering the earth, Prachetas started burning those trees in anger, but God Brahma stopped them. They married a daughter given by the trees and spent their specified lifetime with her in happiness as foretold by thee. After begetting Daksha as their son, Prachetas observed numerous sacrifices to thee. With the spiritual knowledge taught by sage Narada, they attained salvation in the abode of supreme bliss. O Guruvairappa, the Supreme Lord, may thou protect me. Dasakam 20 Rashabhagyojiswara episode. Priyavrata's beloved son Agnidhara had a son called Nabi of great fame, who performed many sacrifices to please thee. During one such sacrifice, he saw thee, the granter of the heart's desires. In that sacrifice, the great sages praised thee and beseeched thee, who art the embodiment of the universe, to bless the king with a son, equal to thee in every respect, as there is none such. Thou promised to be born as Nabi's son, and vanished into the sacrificial fire. In keeping with thy word, thou took birth as Nabi's son Rishabha, in Nabi's beloved wife Merudevi, bringing the great joy to the people of the land due to thy extraordinary qualities and might. O thou, who art the Lord of 3 worlds, was entrusted with the responsibility of ruling the kingdom of Nabi, who went to the forest along with Merudevi to do penance, worshipping thee devotedly. He attained thy abode Vaikunta, the state of complete bliss. Indra, who was jealous of thy glory and the growing prosperity of the land ruled by thee, stopped the rains in this land of Ajnaba. So by the strength of thy own yoga, thou brought rainfall in plenty here. Although of complete inner satisfaction, thou married the beautiful damsel Jayanti, presented by Indra to thee after thou had defeated his attempt to bring drought to thy country. Thou begot by her 100 sons, of whom the eldest Bharata became king. Among the rest, 9 became famous sages. Another 9 ruled over the 9 provinces of Bharatvarsha. The remaining 81 sons of thee attained the status of Brahmins due to the strength of their penance. In the midst of the lordly sages, thou preached to thy sons the path of salvation, explaining that detachment from worldly objects combined with devotion to God would lead to the liberation of the soul. Then thou embarked on the Paramahamsa, an elevated status of sainthood path in which thou adopted the lifestyle of an emotionless madman or one obsessed by a spirit. Although thou art the supreme soul, thou roamed the entire world in the guise of a madman, preaching spiritual values to the people, spoke of whom spurned thy advice in spite of being ridiculed. Thou traversed the whole earth unmoved by their taunts, immersed in the ecstasy of contemplation of the Supreme Soul. Be taking for a long time to the life cell of a python, which eats what comes its way, or that of a cow, deer, or a crow. Thou attained thy supreme form, having thy body burnt in a forest fire in the Kutaka or Coorg mountains. O Guruvairappa, may thou remove all my woes.